We are spending some time with the 15th verse of the spiritual will of Tobit that says, "Do not drink wine to excess, and do not let drunkenness go along on your way." In other words, do not become drunk, and do not keep company with a man who drinks to get drunk. We stated earlier that drugs are another source of intoxication besides alcohol and cigarette smoking. We promised to make a few comments about this evil which has spread worldwide. Drug trafficking presents a serious dilemma, much more serious when this traffic enters the junior high school and high school grounds. Our teenagers today experiment and use a number of different drugs. We will not try to exhaust this subject, nor will we get involved with statistics since this information is readily available. About the destructiveness of drug abuse and drug addiction, we are all well informed from the media. We often hear the term OD, which stands for overdose. Several years ago, one of the most prominent and talented college basketball stars OD'd. His death shocked the nation. He collapsed after a basketball game, I believe, and his heart did not only stop. The picture showed that it actually burst from a crack cocaine overdose. The question is, once again, since everyone knows that drugs kill, drugs destroy a person psychosomatically, drugs ruin lives, why do we have this widespread abuse? You'd think, after all the money spent on drug awareness, all the years of statistical evidence, people should be convinced and this malpractice should come to a halt. On the contrary, drug abuse is on a rise among teenagers in many different parts of the world, including Greece. We must ask over and over again, why? This is the puzzle that we must solve here. This is of great interest to us, and this is what we will attempt to address. This is the key issue and the only one that we will deal with. Again, it is a matter of faith. Faith in the everyday things. The Lord said in the 3rd chapter of John in his conversation with Nicodemus, when Nicodemus asked him, "How can this be? How can someone be reborn from above?" The Lord said, "I have spoken to you earthly things, and you do not believe. How then will you believe if I speak of heavenly things?" This is the 3rd time we are using this verse. We mentioned it. It's over and over again. We stated this in the subject of alcohol and cigarette smoking. We cannot stress this enough that it is a matter of faith. My young friend, my son, my daughter, do not go to that place. Do not hang around shopping malls alone. Nothing good will come from there. If you don't believe this, you will not want to take heed. Hangouts will introduce you to all these things. You must believe it in the depth of your heart. How much must you believe this? Believe it enough not to need proof, not to need to experiment. You certainly do not need any proof for the law of gravity. You have complete faith in the law of gravity. You are not going to experiment with this law by jumping from the roof of a 10-story building. You have faith in this law. We need to apply this faith in the area of drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes. We all have seen the end results of drug and alcohol addicts. During the last talk, we brought up the fable of the fox and the king of the animals, the lion. the fox outsmarted the lion. Unfortunately, people that experiment with drugs behave like flies in the summer. They see hundreds of their peers stuck on the fly trap. They cannot get away. And yet new flies approach the fly trap and they get stuck as well. And with flies, this is understandable. They have no intellect. They have no logic. But a human being has a brain. A person can use his brain to think. And think we must. Think about your two teenage schoolmates who were shot in cold blood at the Lehigh campus by their teenage drug dealer because they owed him $300. Your friend's oldest brother was beheaded in an automobile accident involving a drunk driver. Why couldn't all this happen to you? What is the only guarantee that these things will not happen to you if you choose to stay away from these substances? No. It is not enough to try to stay away from these substances, but we need to stay away from the environment and the people and the friends that talk about these substances and these things. Unfortunately, because of egotism and lack of this faith that we brought up time after time, people think these things happen to someone else. This couldn't possibly happen to me. Father Athanasius Mytilineos, the brain and the guide of my voice, and we should all take time to thank God 1,000 times for him and pray that he grants him many years to supply us with another 5,000 cassette hours of teachings. Father Athanasius says that in his 40 years as a confessor, he has heard and seen everything under the sun. Unspeakable things, unutterable things, terrible sins, strange things. He reminds himself, people with flesh and blood have done these things. People like me. I am no different. I'm a human being. I'm not an angel. Why couldn't I do some of these awful things as well? They managed to do these certain things, and so can I. Who thinks like this? Our Father Athanasius. Only when we have this most basic humility, the humility that informs us that these things can happen to us, only then we will be watchful in something else. Only then God will protect us. God, who loves the humble, will protect us. Otherwise, if we are possessed by the everyday arrogance and pride and invincibility which characterizes today's secular teenager, then we will join the ranks of the victims. We will become an addition to these negative statistics. Certainly, there are other reasons of drug trafficking, such as the copycat syndrome, especially among teenagers. Curiosity is also a great factor, and young people are often curious for new experiences to experience something new. Another factor of drug use is ignorance, and that might not be the case here in this country, probably more so in other countries, where people may not be informed very well as of the consequences of addiction and the bondage that results from this type of addiction. Another reason for drug involvement is bad company, the bad company that a person may keep. My friends are doing it. We are having a lot of fun together. Let me give it a try. And since I am part of this crowd, and after all, everyone else is doing it, I might as well give it a try as well. Again, all these different factors help in the promotion of drug abuse, but the true reason goes much deeper, and we must pay very close attention to this, because once we discover the real reason, then we will also discover the cure. It has to do with our very existence, questioning the purpose of our existence. When a young person is going through a time of spiritual crisis, then he's very vulnerable and in danger of using drugs. The contemporary men, especially the young man or woman, the young man or the young woman of today, has a void, an empty soul. Immediately after they killed and expelled God from his heart. The Big Bang theories, evolution, and a number of unscientific theories have perplexed the teenager's mind. We said unscientific because true science does not rebel against God. Science does not separate itself from religion because they both happen to enjoy a common origin. True science, being the study of nature, originates from God, much like true religion. Today's pseudoscience has rebelled against God and against men. Only a false science will teach false theories, poisoning and corrupting the minds of the students, and a demonic science will invent destruction of life by nuclear weapons. The men of pseudoscience rebelled against God, and now he points his weapon against himself. Science today is in the hands of dark political powers, serving their various expeditions and agendas. The pseudoscience produces various drugs, chemical substances for well-known reasons. Years ago, the great British Empire in its China expedition promoted the spread of some narcotic substance to keep the Chinese people in check. Today, the Chinese government seeks the death penalty for drug users in China. However, they cultivate certain drug plants and they send them to England. This is how God punishes. As we were saying, these darkened minds took care to kill the existence of God in the soul and heart of the people, especially the youth. The man of today, generally speaking, has lost his existential orientation. He has lost the purpose of life. Why do I exist? And this question cannot be answered by science or philosophy, but only God can answer this type of question. People today have lost this orientation of their existence. They are disoriented, and they have no clue where